Hi, my name is Joe Torre. I'm an investment counselor with RealWealth, a real estate education and investing company based in California. Today we're going to do a quick video on how to analyze a real estate deal. So a lot of times investors are out there are getting properties from property providers or real estate agents, and they say, here's a great investment for you. So you need to be able to sanity check the numbers that they give you so you have an idea of what it is you're buying and whether you want to buy it or not. All right, so we'll get right into it. What we have set up here is a case study. This is a brand new single family home in Florida. And this is a typical pro forma financial statement that the provider will send you. They vary a little bit. Sometimes the line items are different, but this is basically the format. So we'll just walk through this and then make some adjustments. So we can see here the selling price is $200,000. You put 25% down for $50,000. Closing cost of $5,000. So your all-in investment on this property would be $55,000. And they tell you that this will rent for $1,800. Your principal and interest payment is $1,065. Property taxes, insurance, property management at 8% of rents, and your total expenses of $1,509. So you can expect to net $291 a month on this property, or almost $3,500 a year. So you take the $3,500 a year and divide it by your investment of $55,000, you get a return on investment of 6.3%, which is pretty good. So when you see something like this, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because obviously the seller is trying to make the property look good, so you'll buy it. So you could look at this as the best case scenario, but you have to trust but verify by going through line item by line item. Make sure you understand where these numbers are coming from and whether you can believe them, and if not, to make some adjustments. So we're going to do that now. I'll walk through this whole thing and show you how to sanity check each number here. It sounds tedious, but it's not really that bad. It goes pretty quickly. So the rent is the easy one. They said it'll rent for $1,800. So how do you see if that's realistic? You go to any of the real estate sites like Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com, and you check on for rent, and then you filter for properties that are similar to yours, the same zip code and number of bedrooms, number of baths, square footage, anything like that, and you see what comes up. So they quoted you $1,800 a month. You can see here $1,775, $1,845, $1,795. $1,800 is pretty much in the ballpark. So you can be confident about that number, that it's realistic. But the second question you have to ask is, how many properties are you competing with? And you can see there's 36 search results for that exact type of property. If you add 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, you might get more, so there's the prospective tenant has a lot of options to choose from. So after seeing all this, you might decide that you're going to lower the rent from $1,800 to $1,750. Not that you couldn't get $1,800, but that you want to be conservative and you want to get the property rented quickly. So you would go back to this line and plug in $1,750 and see what that does to the numbers. And we'll do that at the end. We'll show all the changes that are made and what the final numbers look like. So that's rent. The next line item is the mortgage payment, and this number can vary a lot. So you can see the mortgage payment here is based on a 30-year fixed loan at 7%, so your mortgage payment is $1,065. After speaking with your lender, you find out you have some other options, and you decide to go with a 7-1 ARM. An ARM is an adjustable rate mortgage, and what a 7-1 means is that you get this low rate of 5.75%, which is much lower than what you had before with the fixed rate. And that 5.75 is fixed for 7 years. And after the 7th year, it can change only once a year, and there's a cap on how much it can go up by in any given year. So 7 years is a pretty long time. Most investors hold their properties 5 to 7 years, so that might be more than enough time. But what it does is lowers your monthly payments from $1,065 a month to $935 a month, and gives you an extra $130 a month in cash flow. So you can plug in the new number here and see what that does to the numbers as well. Now, the flip side of that is that as the investor, you have to pay 2 points to get this loan, to buy down the interest rate. So a point is just a percent of the loan amount. So the $200,000 house minus $50K, you're borrowing $150. $150 at 2 percentage points is $3,000. So You would have to make the adjustment here on your pro forma by adding $3,000 to your closing costs from $5,000 to $8,000, but you also could lower the mortgage payment from $1,065 a month down to $935 a month. So you make those two changes and go to the next line, property taxes. Now, on a new construction home like the one we're looking at, tax estimates are usually pretty accurate. The home builder has built a lot of these type of homes in this area and knows what the property taxes are going to be. So for our example, we're not going to make any changes to the property taxes. We're going to take their word for it that it's $250 a month. Just as a side note, if this was a renovated house, it might be very different. A renovated house is when someone buys a house that's, say, 50 years old, 40 years old, then they put a bunch of work into it to renovate it, bring it up to speed, and then they sell it to you. So in this example of a renovated home, the seller bought it originally for $100,000, put $30,000 of renovations into it, and so his all-in cost is $130,000, and then he's going to sell it to you for $150,000, so he can make a $20,000 profit. Now, what happens here sometimes is that the property taxes that they put on the pro forma is actually the last property tax that was assessed on the property, and that was based on the $100,000 number, not on the current value of $150,000. So you might get a bad surprise if you think that your taxes are going to be X, and then it turns out to be a lot more than X. So you go to the county tax assessor's website, find out how they calculate taxes, and do some back of envelope math. And this varies from county to county, even within the same state, and see what you think the right number should be. And also find out how often do they reassess taxes. Maybe sometimes they just change it every 3 years, in which case you're probably okay. Or if they change it every year, then you might want to pay more attention to this line. But that's how you check property taxes. In our example, we're going to leave it the same because it's a brand new house. Next line item is insurance expense. Insurance here is quoted at $50 a month. You should be aware that the quote is usually for the minimum, the most basic insurance coverage that's required by the bank, because the bank is using your house as collateral for the loan, so they don't want it to burn to the ground. So the bare minimum might be okay, or you might choose to get extra coverage. So you should talk to your insurance company, ask for a quote for the basic coverage that the bank requires, and then ask them if they think you need any additional coverage. Now, being that this example is in Florida, you might ask about hurricanes insurance or flood insurance. Of course, you have to take what the insurance company says with a grain of salt too, because their job is to sell you insurance. So they're going to say you need everything, and you may not. So you ask them, when was the last time you had to pay for a claim on hurricane damage? Since this city is inland, it's not near the coast, maybe the last time was 20 years ago, in which case you may not need it. So you have to use your judgment there. The other option that's listed here is an umbrella policy. An umbrella policy is an insurance policy to protect you against lawsuits or any unforeseen events like that. So if somebody trips on your sidewalk and tries to sue you, the umbrella policy will cover it. They're usually pretty reasonable. Like $1 million policy costs something like $200 a year. So in this example, the investor decided to add the umbrella insurance policy, $180 a year for $1 million policy. That adds $15 a month to the pro forma. So instead of $50 a month, we'll make it $65. Then finally, property management. That's pretty straightforward. It's usually a percent of the monthly rent. But remember, we changed the rent from $1,800 to $1,750. So 8% of $1,750 is $4 lower, no big deal. So we would change this property management fee from $144 down to $140. Also, as an aside, you should understand the property manager's entire fee schedule, not just what they charge for monthly maintenance. So sometimes they have a tenant placement fee, which is equal to 1 month's rent. So if they find a tenant for you and screen them, do all the background checks, they'll charge you the first month's rent, sometimes half a month's rent, it depends. And then when the tenant renews the lease, they might charge you a flat fee of $150 or so, or it could be as high as 25% of the rent. So just understand their entire fee schedule before you sign with them. But for our purposes today, all we're worried about is the monthly property management fee, which is only 8% of rents. So that covers everything that they put on the pro forma. However, there are some things that they left out, and some providers will do that. So you have to add them to yourself. So there's no accounting for vacancy or maintenance expense. These are missing line items from the pro forma in the example. So first, vacancy. Most tenants stay an average of about 30 months, 2.5 years. That means for every 30-month period, you have 30 months of occupancy and 1 month of vacancy. So 1 divided by 31 is roughly 3%. So you want to take out another 3% of rents as a reserve for vacancy. You're not losing the money, you still have it in your account. It's just that you're setting it aside for a rainy day because you know sooner or later you're going to have a vacancy. And the other thing that wasn't on the pro forma was maintenance. So you should put in a reserve for maintenance because sooner or later you're going to need maintenance as well. So for a new home that's still under builder warranty, maintenance is very minimal. You know, if something breaks, the builder has to fix it for free because it's still under warranty if it's the first year. So you might just put a minimal amount, like 3% of rents for maintenance. You know, something got clogged, they have to send a guy out to fix the toilet or something like that. Then for renovated homes that are 40, 50 years old, you might want to double that and make it 6% of rents. Because older homes is going to require more maintenance. That's all there is to it. No matter how well the renovation is done, it's going to cost more. So in our pro forma, we're going to adjust it by putting another 3% of rents aside for maintenance expense. So to summarize it, here's the original pro forma we saw at the beginning, and then here's all the adjustments that we made. We added $3,000 to buy down our interest rate. We took the rent down by $50. We added a reserve for vacancy, which is $52. Then we got lower payments because we got different financing, so that adds $130 to our cash flow. Property taxes, we made no change to. Insurance, we decided to get some extra coverage, which costs an extra $15 a month. Property management fee, we saved $4 by having lower rents. And we added a maintenance reserve. So when you add it all up, it's really pretty much a wash. It's only $17 difference. So our expenses went down by $17. The effect on cash flow between that and the lower rent, our cash flow went down to $258 a month or $3,000 a year instead of $3,500. And our ROI, return on investment, went down a full percentage point. Went from 6.3% down to 5.3%. So that's not bad at all. You're getting very positive cash flow, $3,000 a year. And being in Florida, this is an appreciation investment. You're really buying a property because 10 years from now, this $200,000 house is going to be worth $300,000. So you're basically buying the property so that it pays for itself while it's appreciating. So this is still a good investment. So you should move forward with it. Or you might choose to move forward with it. Now, sometimes you crunch the numbers and you find out that the property is negative, has negative cash flow, or otherwise is unattractive. In that case, you walk away from the deal. So that's why we go through this exercise. You look at what the provider is giving you, and then you do your sanity checks on it, and then decide if you want to move forward or not with the deal. The most common mistakes I see are rent estimates. They're almost always skewed to the optimistic side. If the rent range is $1,750 to $1,850, they'll put $1,850 because they're trying to make the property look good to the investor because they're trying to sell it. So you have to be careful about that number in particular. The second number you have to watch is the mortgage payments because that can vary very significantly based on the type of loan you get, the loan terms, and your own personal credit score. And then finally, maintenance expenses, especially for older homes, you can get nickel and dimed. Every time they send a guy out, it's going to cost you $200, just to fix something. So that can eat away your cash flow. So final thoughts, always sanity check the projections, go through it line by line and say, here's what they're telling me. Can I believe this number? And what does the final picture look like? And you should get practice at this by looking at multiple deals. When your providers send you properties, even if you're not interested in the property, you should go through this exercise just for practice to see what questions come up, what don't you understand, and talk to the provider and find out. And you'll learn more about the market and the kind of properties that they offer and where things can go wrong. You'll find that some sellers are consistently off in certain areas. Like if you have multiple providers giving you properties, you'll find one always overestimates rents, or another one always messes up on the property taxes. And after a while, when you're dealing with certain providers, you'll just know what to look for. And before long, you can do a sanity check like the one we just walked through in just a couple minutes. And that's important because when you do see a deal that you like, you want to be able to act on it quickly. There's nothing more demoralizing than to spend an hour doing your due diligence and then you call up the provider and say, I want the property. And they say, oh, we just put it under contract. Somebody called 10 minutes ago. So you want to be able to move quickly. So getting practice at crunching the numbers is a very useful exercise. Okay, so if you want to learn more about this and other aspects of investing, you can join RealWealth.com. Go to the webpage, the homepage, RealWealth.com, and click this orange button, join for free, and you get a free membership. Several of the benefits. For new investors, there's a core curriculum, which is 4 15-minute videos that give you everything you need to know to get started. A lot of new investors get analysis paralysis. There's so much information, and they don't know what to do. This distills everything down so you conceptually understand what you need to do, and you can move forward. For more advanced investors, we have a library of over 900 webinars on every aspect of real estate investing. We also keep that content current because every week we have more educational webinars and podcasts, and we're constantly refreshing the content. And when you're ready, you can speak to an experienced investment counselor who's been investing for years, such as myself. I'm one of 3 investment counselors at RealWealth, so you can ask specific questions that you have and get advice about your next steps. And it's all free, so there's no reason not to do it. So that sums up our topic today. I hope you found it worthwhile. Thanks for watching.